Trucker Dump, episode 124, the Overweight Axle Debacle.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey, dudes and dudettes. Welcome back to the show. Todd McCann here, coming to you today from, let's see, I'm recording in, where the heck am I? Columbus, Ohio. Well, when you're a trucker, you're all over the map. So I just thought it'd be kind of interesting if I start saying where I'm recording these different all these different segments. Anyway, welcome back to the show. It's been less than a month, so I get a cookie, right? Somebody send me a dang cookie. Somebody send it now. Jeez, what do I got to do with you people? Anyway, hey, today we got a long show. I think it's going to be a really long show. I know I say it a lot, but anyway, here's what we got. I got a classic trucker dump rant coming up for you, which, I think are classic. I think the word is classic, but maybe you just think it's annoying or whining. I don't know. Nobody's ever really commented on my rants, so I assume it's okay to do them. Nobody's told me to shut my pie hole or anything, so I guess I'll just keep doing them. In the feedback section, we're going to hear briefly from Garry and David, and then we're going to hear a couple of longer ones from Renae and Andrew. Stay tuned to that. Hey, and guess what? We're also going to do that drawing for the Meritor jacket, so stick around. Well, of course, you're tuned into this. Where you going? And, another thing we got going on for change of pace is I might have a possible interview coming up here. I guess you'll know here in a minute. I'll say whether the interview is going to happen. I've been trying to coordinate with a guy about a app that's for owner-operators and talk to him briefly, and just haven't been able to line up with him. So if that happens, it'll happen, I guess, and you'll hear it. If not, oh well. Hey, speaking of hearing things, can you hear anything going on in the background here? Well, that's because I'm playing with some new software. This software is called Hindenburg. It's named that after, yes, the Hindenburg tragedy, with the blimp coming down and everything, or Zeppelin? Well, I don't even know what they call it. Anyway, it came down, and I thought that's just such a weird name for it, for an audio recording app. But then I remembered this is actually an audio recording app that's designed for broadcasters. And the reason they called it Hindenburg is because it is widely regarded as the first live radio broadcast, basically, when a guy was there on site covering what was going on, and then when the crash happened, he did like this live thing, and it really shook the world. Basically, everybody heard about it, and that's kind of like the landmark radio thing, so they nicknamed it after Hindenburg. Anyway, I don't know why I told you all that. You don't really care, probably. But I thought it was kind of an interesting story. I heard about that story, actually, for the first time on the Stuff You Should Know podcast, I believe. Anyway, here's the deal, though, guys. This software is pretty cool. It's going to help me cut down on my editing a lot. A lot of my editing time is going to be cut in half. The problem is, you guys know I'm a cheapskate. So this software is $95. Oh, but wait, the denoising one that I want that is actually pretty darn awesome, it's $375. $375. Ouch. But you know what? You'll hear later on, the blog post portion of the podcast and the feedback was all done. Well, let's just say, I'll explain that when I get to it. This software is pretty freaking unbelievable. So anyway, enough of that. But I will say, this thing is $375, and believe it or not, I am probably going to spring for that eventually. Buck from the Trucking Podcast told me that once a year they go on sale. And like the $95 version they sell it for like 99 cents, or I think last February they sold it for $1.90. So I'm going to jump on that, and then I'll probably upgrade to the Pro from there. I'm just waiting on that tweet to come out. I'm getting all their tweets so I don't miss it. Just loving this software. Anyway, I tell you all this partially because, well, it's $375. And if you have ever thought about donating to the show, now would be a really good time to do that. You can go to abouttruckdriving.com, go to the blog section, and you'll see a little donate button in the right sidebar. And you know what? Speaking of the right sidebar and my website, I just found out the other day that the theme that I use, the WordPress theme that I use, is being deprecated. Well, that just goes to show, I mean, they actually said that it's old and outdated and it's not modern anymore. And I've known this for a long time, but I just didn't want to do anything about it because I've got everything set up perfectly. But I've known my website looks like it's from the 2000s or something. So I guess I'll be forced to do something because after a year it's going to, well, I don't know if it's going to keep it working, but they're going to quit supporting it for sure. So anyway, got to deal with that. Dang it. Like I don't have anything else to do. Anyway, so what else is going on? Well, you know, I've been digging this weather. I don't know about you guys. Fall is my favorite time of the year. You know, you get to go to the spook houses with your nephews. Well, used to before, when they actually thought you were cool and wanted to hang out with you. None of them really want to do that anymore. But that was always fun to go to the corn mazes and stuff like that. But, you know, just the cooler weather, all the leaves on the trees. It's just awesome. I love it. But I didn't get to do anything I wanted to do when I went home this last time. It really kind of stunk. We had to move the in-laws into a new place, and basically that took the whole weekend. I got home on a Friday evening. The two older nephews were over there helping move them already, and we just moved a bunch of the small junk stuff we can just throw in cars and pickups and stuff and get over there. And then on Saturday, they had to go to work, which is awesome because they're working now. They're both working at McDonald's, and I love it because now they see what work's like, and they don't like it. Well, as I like to say, welcome to real life. You know, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I don't really care for it either. But you got to work, and I think they're learning some good lessons from that. But anyway, they had to go in to work on Saturday and could not help. My brother-in-law, their stepfather, came over to help, and that was nice of him. So we spent all day in the truck moving all the big crap. And then Sunday was all spent, you know, hanging pictures, cleaning the place up, getting all the furniture rearranged, hanging curtains, all that kind of stuff. Got home super late Sunday night, had to get up bright and early Monday morning and head out. So it's one of those weekends. I mean, I didn't even get to mow the freaking yard. You know, it's unbelievable. Thankfully, the nephews went over and did it just a couple of days ago for me. And they didn't even charge me. Huh, aren't they sweet? Well, anyway, it just kind of, you know, really stinks when you're out on the road for 3 weeks at a time like I am, and then you go home and you just don't even really get a chance to just sit there and relax for a second. I mean, I didn't watch any TV. I didn't do anything. It was move, sleep, shower, move. It was just awful. But anyway, you do what you do because they're family. And you can't kill them, right? But, you know, when I was home, one thing I did plan to do was download some maps for the My ONE20 app. You guys familiar with this app? It's a fairly new, well, I don't know if it's a new trucking app. It's new to me. I heard about it at the GATS show this year in Dallas, the Great American Trucking Show. It's got some social features to it. It's got some routing features to it. And it's also got a GPS navigation thing for trucks. One thing cool about it is, like I said, you have to download the map so you can use it offline, which is great. But that means I need free Wi-Fi, and I didn't have the time to do it last time. So next time I'm home, I'm going to be downloading those maps, and I'm going to be testing this app. So if you're already using the My ONE20 app, by the way, that's spelled My ONE20 is spelled ONE20. Check that out in whatever app store you get your apps. And if you're using that already, write in, tell me how you like it. Tell me how the GPS is doing for you. I've not had much luck with these truck GPSs, the ones I've tried on my phone. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think about that. Okay, so let me take a second here to just tell you how you can get a hold of me in case you want to send your thoughts on the 120 app or anything else you want to. First, you can always email me, truckerdump@gmail.com. But what else you can do with that email is you can join the Trucker Dump Slack group, which is a free app. Just hop in there. It's growing, it's growing, but it's a private thing, and I understand that not everybody's going to join it. It's a fun group, and you should join, I think. Email me, truckerdump@gmail.com, ask for an invite. And hey, if you're an Apple junkie like I am, and you love Apple stuff, and you're a trucker, we also have another group that's just for truckers who love Apple crap, called iTruckers. And if you'd like to be a part of that, just email Bob at itruckers@icloud.com, and Bob will get an invite out to you. But you know what? I kind of feel sorry for people who actually want to be a part of the group, but they just don't need another social media aspect in their life. And I have come to a realization, and it's an amazing thing that you guys are not going to believe, but I now have a Trucker Dump Podcast Facebook page. Yes, I broke down. Oh, it's not been pretty so far. Facebook keeps kicking me out. Like I'll just try to log in one day, or just try to open the app on my phone, and it'll say, you can't log in right now. Please upload a photo of your face, profile picture, and we will compare it to what we have online, and then we will let you back in. Problem is, I have not uploaded a profile picture, and I did that on purpose because I don't want to be found personally there from like old friends and stuff like that I don't want to hang out with anymore. But I do want the podcast to be found, and I want to go where the people are, and I know you people are on Facebook. So now that I have done this, you need to join the freaking group. Okay, I'm still getting used to Facebook, so I'm kind of confused about this whole thing. I have my personal page, which you shouldn't even really care about. I'm not doing anything on it. The only reason I started a personal page is because I had to have one to start a business page. So anyway, I have a Trucker Dump. Okay, here's the thing, though. Make sure you don't just type Trucker Dump, because you're going to get an eyeful. Not necessarily bad, just really gross. There's a band called Trucker Dump, and they don't do anything on Facebook except for just a couple of posts, but there's a horrible picture of an outhouse porta potty in there that's just sickening. I asked the guy if he would give up the name, but he didn't respond to me. So I'm not going by Trucker Dump. I am going by Trucker Dump Podcast. So make sure you put the podcast on there. So anyway, that URL is facebook.com/Trucker Dump Podcast, all one word. Or you can just go on Facebook and search Trucker Dump Podcast. But that, the way I understand it, I'm just going to kind of use that for, announcing when I have a new podcast, or if I have new products out, like a new book or anything like that. Promoting my current books, which are Trucking Life, by the way, and How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, both available on Amazon, iBooks, or anywhere else you can find books, ebooks. Wow, what a plug. But the thing I wanted that's more like a Slack group is where we can all interact. And the way I understood, that is considered a Facebook group. So I have also started a Trucker Dump Podcast group. Of course, that's a weird URL. I can't just give it to you. So either go to the show notes and click the link, or just go into Facebook and search Trucker Dump Podcast Group. And for me, it just popped right up. And I hope it does for you too. And like I said, I did this kind of against my will, but I was told podcast is never going to grow and get bigger if I'm not where the people are. You're the people. You're there. Join the freaking group, or else I'm just going to have to give up on it. All right, let's move on. Hey, big thing going on here. The Meritor jacket contest. Well, you know what? Turns out it wasn't such a big thing. It's a cool jacket, but I guess people just don't enter these things. I just really don't understand. I got 3 whopping entries for this thing. The first email I got was from a guy named Stephen Highfill, And his email just simply said, enter me for the jacket. Thanks. Just short and sweet. I can appreciate that, Steve. I can especially appreciate it since I have no capability of keeping things short and sweet. But David Shoemate, I think that's the way you pronounce his name. He actually one-upped Steve. In his email, it just said jacket in the subject line, like I told him to put, and there was nothing in the body of the text. I assumed he wanted to join to get into the contest, so that's what he did. And actually, David did write a longer email, but, well, I'll get back to that in the feedback section. And the last one was a guy named Zachary. And I'm just going to hit a little bit of feedback right out front here since, he wrote a little bit with his. He wrote, Zachary writes in and says, "Hey, Todd, I love your podcast. Happy to hear you got the new truck. I really like the looks of the KWs." Yeah, me too. I think they're awesome. And he says, "Well, be safe and stay out of my way, because I know my truck is faster." He says most of the trucks are 78 in his fleet, but his Peterbilt just got a new computer in it, so it's not even set yet. Wow. Zachary, I'm glad you enjoy the podcast, and it really makes my day when anybody bothers to take the time to write in and say that they enjoy it, and I just appreciate that. Hey, and good luck with the jacket contest to all you guys. I can't believe, I just can't imagine what it's like to drive a truck that is not speed limited. I mean, the truck that was the fastest that I drove for was a company truck, and it was an old Freightliner Classic, the only classic anything I've ever driven. And it was set at 73 mile an hour, and it actually went, I think it was set at 74, but it actually went about 73. But I just can't imagine it. All I got to say is I'm kind of glad I don't drive a truck like that. I don't speed, but it would be a lot more tempting if I could. It's kind of hard to speed in the 65 zone when you can only go 64. But anyway, thanks for writing in, Zachary. We'll get to the rest of the feedback later on. But anyway, we have a contest to do. Last time I got all technical on you guys and I did a video because I didn't know if you guys trusted me to do the right thing. I don't even remember what the contest was for. Was it for a t-shirt? God, I don't remember. It wasn't a Trucker Dump t-shirt. I don't remember what it was for. But anyway, I went all technical and I did this random number generator and I assigned everybody a number and I videotaped it so you guys would know I was being honest and not being biased towards somebody, because there were some people in the group in the entries that I actually knew fairly well and I didn't want to be biased. But you know what? I don't know any of these three guys, so I'm not going through all that rigmarole again. Here's what I'm doing. I wrote David on a piece of paper. I'm ripping it off. I wrote Zachary on a different piece. And I wrote Steve on a different piece. So I'm wadding all these up. I'm tossing them in a bowl. It's pretty scientific, isn't it? And I'm mixing the bowl around a little bit. Oh my crap, I dropped one. There it is. Okay, I'm mixing them around a little bit. I'm not looking at them. And I'm going to draw one out. And whoever is the lucky winner is David is the lucky winner. So Zachary and Steve, you guys have crap for luck. 1 out of 3 chances. And you didn't win. I apologize. I wish I had 3 jackets, man, but I don't. So David, you have my email address. Please send me your physical address and I will get that out to you as soon as I'm home next, which is probably going to be the weekend of the November 4th and 5th. And I'll get that out to you in the mail. Anyway, thanks for entering, and screw the rest of you guys. You could have had a chance at winning it too, and you had a really good chance. But no, you didn't bother. So screw you. All right, let's move on. All right, well, that interview that I was talking about earlier in the show, it happened. So yay, finally hooked up with the guy. We're going to have a talk. Well, I'll just explain it right here. Here goes the interview. Okay, folks, we're here with Bill Busbice. Did I pronounce that right, Bill?
Yes, it is, Todd.
Okay, great. Welcome to the Trucker Dump. Bet you never thought you'd be on a podcast called the Trucker Dump, huh?
No, I didn't. I really didn't, Todd.
Yeah, Bill and I just went through an ordeal trying to figure out Skype. Neither one of us are really very brilliant when it comes to technology, apparently.
Yeah.
But anyway, Bill is with HWY Pro. That is an app for truckers. Can you tell, by the way, that is HWYPro.com. That's HWYPRO.com. Okay, Bill, so HWY Pro, how did you come up with the idea for the app? Or were you in the industry? Or are you a driver yourself? How's that work?
All right. Well, Todd, I had a trucking company, and I sold it in 2008. It was called Ace Transportation, and at the time we sold it, we were like 73rd largest trucking company in America.
Holy smokes!
And we, and I sat down and got my money, blah blah blah. Sat around, did some other things, and it occurred to me last year that everybody has cell phones now.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to go unload your load and then go call your dispatcher or your load agent or your broker or whatever to get your next load?
Right.
And so everyone has cell phones. So that's whenever I began thinking, man, if we could do it this way, we could do it that way. And, it was like a year ago we started playing this thing, and we're still evolving as we go. So it's a work in progress, but it's going to change trucking forever, I think.
Okay, cool. Bill, can you tell us what this app is very briefly, just a elevator pitch here?
Okay, I don't want to drag it out, but I'm bad about talking and digging myself a hole. But anyway, HWY Pro is an app for truckers to get loads off of their cell phone and be able to sign on the documents, get a bill of lading. It's I'm not a computer guy, as I told you, Todd, but it's so updated that it's going to change the way trucking is done. It will not be the old way of going unloading your load and going down to the truck stop and looking at a load board and trying to find your load. They'll pay something, and then or going closer to home or whatever. It's just going to be something. In other words, they can get up on a Monday morning, take a load, key in where they're going, and then in 4 or 5 phone clicks on the phone, they'll be able to book their next load. And they could, as far as I know, can book it for the entire week or two while they're out.
Really? Okay, well, since you mentioned that it's going to change the industry, how is the industry done now in comparison?
Well, I think that a lot of independent, 97% of all trucking companies in America are 20 trucks or less.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, they are not huge companies. You got a lot of smaller companies trying to get loads out, and those people and all trucking companies now have what we used to call an Ace Transportation company on a backhaul department. In other words, I'm sure they call it something else now, some new logistics something. But anyway, they load a truck out and then they try to find a truck to load back. Well, our system will allow the elimination of a lot of that overhead in a company, because you won't need the people, the backhaul department calling these people all over the country trying to find loads. And in most cases, they wind up going through a broker somewhere, and the broker charges a percentage, and sometimes 8 to 20% of a load is going to be paid to a broker for handling the shipment. And you know what I mean? And that money should flow right into the driver's hands and the truck owner's hands, not someone who's really not doing the physical work of moving that load.
Here's what I don't understand. What is the difference between a backhaul and any old regular load? I don't understand that.
You're
I
right.
never have.
You're right. It's not a backhaul would be something that comes in the oil and gas industry. They usually haul a load out, and they want to come right back home to get another load. Well, that's where backhaul came from. Backhaul. So they'd go out, and then they'd find them a load to come right back close to their house. That way they get another load. As far as, you know what I mean? So as far as the general commodity hauling all over the country, vans, heavy haul, or reefers and flatbeds, actually, you're exactly right. They must just find another regular load.
Right. Okay.
But eventually, Todd, don't you want to kind of find a load to come close to your house?
Yeah, you do.
Right.
Ideally.
Right. Yeah. And our app, HWY Pro, keeps your home base location in the system all the time. So it's always looking for a load, or it's going to show you loads, and then you choose the load that you think that will work better for you, or get you closer to the house, or closer to where you want to go, and then get another load then, because you get a load there coming back closer to your house. And it's a really, really, really neat system. We have already a lot of people love it and are using it, and it's going to, like I said earlier, it's going to change trucking forever.
Yeah, I mean, I read on your site that you don't really have to talk to a person to book a load, and that seems, I'm sure, completely strange to any owner operator right now.
Yes, but you can do either. You can do either. You can call and talk to we call them, I'm calling them dispatchers. That's what they really are, but they, you know what I mean.
Well, they come up with some creative names for that, don't they? There's fleet owners, fleet managers. They're still just dispatchers, aren't they? Exactly. They always will be.
But so we can call. They can call, or they can just click on the phone and pick up the load, and just go load it, and then go and deliver it. And one thing I like about it too, Todd, it lets you. Say you're going from Chicago to New Orleans, okay? When you leave Chicago, you get on your phone, say, I'll be in New Orleans like Wednesday afternoon at 5. Show me loads there that will be I can get on going to wherever I want to go, other places. And the rates, that's another, well, I'll go there in a second. But so they get on that phone, iPhone, or their, not big. Hey guys, you're gonna have to throw those flip phones away and get you an iPhone.
Yeah.
And because it's going to be worth it, because the money is going to come to you guys, not to the brokers or load agents or trucking companies. It's going to come directly to you.
Yeah, and I read on the site that it comes pretty darn quick, doesn't it?
Yes, it can. It can come real. I mean, that like within 24 hours, or if they don't need it that quickly, you can get it in like a week.
Well, I don't know why anybody would want to wait a week. But
You're right.
I mean, do you? Yeah. I mean, I got to wait for my loads for a week as a company driver, and I don't much like that. I'd much rather get paid immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's going to be the main source of our. People think about it. You're not going to want to trust someone to hold your money that long. That's in trucking business historically, as you probably know, Todd. I know some of your listeners do. Trucking companies have always been somewhat, you always had a little bit of doubt about, are they going to pay me? Are they going to pay me quickly?
Yeah, wishy-washy. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's why you want to get paid and get paid quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's less doubt when you work for a huge company, but when you're an owner-operator, or if you're just a driver working for an owner-operator, then you start having some questions, because if he's not getting paid, then you're not getting paid.
Not at all. You're right. So
yeah, and that ain't good.
No, it's not. And my dad was an owner-operator, and he's dead now. I wish he was here to see this new app I've got, but he's died. And he He was a driver in the late '90s, you know, and back then, of course, trucks were a lot cheaper, and tires were a lot cheaper, and fuel was a lot cheaper, oil was a lot cheaper. But anymore today, it would just blow his mind to see what we're able to do with this HWY Pro app.
Yeah. Now, you talked about drivers with smartphones, or drivers, rather, without smartphones, which we were talking earlier that, man, I've met a lot of them, and I'm sure you have. There's a lot of guys that aren't tech savvy out here. How are they going to use this app, or are they? Is there a web component to this, or is it just smartphones?
Well, it's web-based also, and
so you could go to a web page and
yes.
log in there and do that. Because I have discovered that a lot of guys that I talk to, they may still have a flip phone, but they do have a computer, you know, for checking email and stuff like that.
Okay, well, yeah.
You know.
Computer, iPad, all that stuff will work. And and that is a good thing, because we're going to have to do that. The old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and that's so true. And I'm one of those people, okay? You can't teach me a new trick, because I'm too old, But this thing is going to eventually, here's the plan, and we got Aon Insurance and Marsh McClendon working on it. We're going to try to get a rate of insurance for these owner-operators and or fleets, okay, or trucking companies. But most trucking companies will be able to, they'll have their own insurance, okay? But but a smaller owner operator, he may be saying, well, you know, I'd like to have my own authority and run and be my own man.
So you want to help with that, kind of be a one-stop shop. Sounds like.
And you know, think about it. I've called owner operators. Don't mean nothing bad about this, but they become a dependent owner operator. They're independent, but they're dependent on their company to load them.
Oh, yeah.
And that is where this HWY Pro app is going to help those guys become truly independent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have to have your own authority to go to use this app?
No, you do not. No, you do.
You don't.
You do not. No. But it would be better if you did. Okay. In other words,
right.
If you're paying your own insurance, your own fuel, your own truck, your own tires, everything, then why pay a company who's basically trying to get you to take one of their brokered loads or a load agent load for and paying them money, whenever you could do it through this app and not have to pay anybody, just be your own boss.
Now, I'm showing my ignorance here, but, you know, I've told my listeners over and over, I've driven for 20 years, and it's amazing how stupid I am about anything owner-operator.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. If somebody is leased on with one of the major companies, are they still able to use this app, or are they stuck with that company?
Well, they can still use the app, okay, but we would have to pay the trucking company that they are actually leased to.
Okay. So they got to get their cut in there somewhere.
Yeah. So, but eventually, I think as this app becomes more and more popular, more and more people start using it, then you're going to see people saying, well, I need to pay these people for doing nothing except, you know, just let me put their sign on their side of the truck and taking a percentage for even doing that. Whenever I can just go get my own authority, get your own authority is cheap, and your own insurance through your own, or we're going to offer that also, and you can buy your own insurance, and then you're truly an independent, not a dependent independent, so to speak.
Right. Okay, let me understand. I tried to actually download the app, but I couldn't because I'm not an owner operator. So how do you get the app? Is it on the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store?
We just started this business in September, so late September actually, and we have it on the HWYPro.com on the web, general web. Now we're currently working, and we should have it the first week in November, where you can buy it, or not even buy it, it won't be for free, on the App Store.
Yeah, because I know right now I'm a big Apple junkie. And I know, like you can side load, like you could go to your website and download an Android app and put it on your phone, but you can't do that with an Apple phone.
Right.
As far as I know, you can't side load it. It's got to be in the App Store. So you're thinking it'll be in there sometime around November?
Well, it'll be in there by November 7th. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, for sure. Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Bill, you mentioned pricing a second ago, and the app is free. So how does that work? What can a driver do right now, an owner-operator, if he downloads your app when it's available in November? What can he do with the app right now?
Well, he can get on the app, and he can do everything that we're talking about as far as getting loads,
Okay.
booking loads, hauling loads,
Okay.
picking out his destinations that he wants to go, look at the rates, and then whenever he's ready to get paid, we will pay him, and that will be a charge. Now, if they want to get paid in 24 hours, they're going to get paid. I think right now it's 3% more than a regular a week-long wait for your payment.
Okay.
But
all right.
Just 3% for every day. I think most people are going to want to get paid every day.
Yeah.
It just depends on their personal situation.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, a lot of times when I hear of a free app, I'm curious how they're making their money. And if they're not making any money, then that makes me more nervous, because why would you sign up for a service that might go out of business? But it sounds like you guys have a plan in the background to make some money. So that's good.
Yeah, we have to make some money. I agree. If you don't know how these people are going to make money, you better not sign up that app. Okay? Yeah. Because you got to be able to make some money, and they will. And like some people do advertising, and we've had people approach us about possibly advertising on the app, and I think we'll do some of that. And
there's a lot of apps out there that make more money on advertising than they do.
Actually physically doing what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. But one thing I do love about apps, and just take this for whatever you want to, but when you get a free app, I love it when they give you the opportunity to pay just like $1 just to get rid of the apps, or a $2 or whatever. Because if it's an app I really like, a lot of times I'll just give them the money, because it's making me money. Like in the case of HWY Pro, it's making me money. So, I don't care if I give you $5 or whatever, just to get rid of ads.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Too, Todd, I've seen a lot of things here regarding truck owners and drivers, but they paying people to load their trucks. They're truly independents, but they again becoming independent because they're paying people like $70, $80, $90 a month to keep their trucks loaded. If you want to get on a load board, let's just say.
Yeah, you're talking about some of the load board systems, right?
Yeah. Right. Okay. And so they're paying a lot of money for that. Well, that's good, but I think that in our HWY Pro app, they'll be able to save money on all that. And our motto, our saying is, that way you guys can just drive. Because really, that's really what everybody kind of wants to do, just drive. Leave me alone. Let me load my load. Let me get it delivered. People don't understand, Todd, if they never have been around trucks or drivers or customers or shippers it's not easy, as you probably know. You got to back in. You got to show up at a specific time. They put you in a little old hole. You got to back into it. It's not big enough for a Volkswagen, much less an 18-wheeler with a van.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people think, well, you're a truck driver, you're driving down the road. How hard can it be? And honestly, driving down the road isn't that hard. It is mentally taxing on you, but and then there's the mental part of it where you're missing your family and you're gone on the road all the time and you're not eating as healthy as you should and all that kind of good junk. But
you're right. So true. But if you could just drive your truck and not have to worry about, where's my next load? Who am I going to get to do that for me? Or where am I going to be able to go to? And where's the price? Well, why don't they list the prices on? That's one thing I've noticed on these load boards too. They don't put the price out there. So that kind of indicates to me that what they're doing is they'll got a load and can load until Friday. So they'll try to get more money on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And then Friday afternoon, when they got to move it, they start bringing up the price.
I see. So they don't just set a price and say, this is what we're paying. It adjusts according to the situation.
Yeah. And that's load agents and brokers. They do that. I mean, you know that, I'm sure. Unless you let me ask you, I should be asking you this. Y'all have all y'all's own freight, so you don't have to go through a broker or a load agent or anything like that, right, Todd?
Yeah, and I just had to beep that out because nobody knows who I work for. But that's fine. I'll just beep it out. I'll put a big truck horn over or something like that. Okay. No, I keep that. I always keep that quiet so I can just, if I feel like going on a rant about them in the podcast, then I don't have to worry about getting fired or anything. So it's kind of nice. Yeah. Yeah. All right. One thing I think is really cool is that you guys always show the price on there. I mean, is the price always in the app?
Well, it's not. It's not currently because of some of the people we're having to convert to understanding what we're trying to do.
Okay.
Eventually, they will be. Eventually, let's say you're a shipper, okay, and you have destinations all over you, and you don't want to post your pricing that you're paying to the world,
right?
But so you can actually, as a shipper, hide your pricing to everyone else out there except the truck driver, okay? And they would not know you are the shipper. You follow what I'm saying? I mean,
that's uncool, but I see what you're saying. Yeah,
because that's something that you're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah,
right. And our new partners. It's a brand new thing, but we got some very, very good customers coming on, and they are getting it. And like I said earlier about, I don't know if I said it on the while we were talking on recording earlier.
Online, on the record or not. Yeah,
but there will be a driver shortage. It already is one. There will be a 20 to 25% driver shortage, not in 100 years, but it's going to be in by the year 2025. So, therefore, in my opinion, it has to. Everything gets here by a truck, and it's going to have to raise the prices.
Yeah,
gotta have to. And so, with that said, that is going to be a great time to get into the business as we are doing, because everybody's going to see that they're going to get not only a price increase from the shipper. We're going to give them a price increase from the app rather than going through a load agent or a broker or whatever.
So it sounds like it's a good time to, if you're ever thinking about becoming an owner-operator, now is a good time to get in.
It really is. I mean, it really is. And I think we talked about earlier, people just don't want to. I've talked to people who say, well, I don't want my kid to drive a truck. Well, I don't know, because trucks, if they get the right pay going to the people, it can be a very lucrative situation. But
people don't want their kids to become plumbers either. But plumbers make a buttload. How you like that for a? There's a pun for you, buttload.
Plumber. I heard that.
Yeah.
But and that's so true, because today you got to pay for a plumber to come to your house. You're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, they make a killing. I've been telling my nephew, he's getting in the trades, and I'm like, don't let anybody convince you that the trades are not a good thing, because you can't outsource a plumber. You can't outsource somebody coming over and cleaning the crap out of your toilet. It ain't gonna get nobody from China to come over and do that.
You're right. So true. And I read an article in Overdrive magazine today or yesterday about the drivers in California were going to the ports to pick up loads.
That's a mess over there. I've been hearing.
And they were actually working for pennies an hour or less than $1 an hour when you put all that together. So with the introduction of ELDs, a lot of that's going to go away too. So you got truck drivers going to be getting out the business because they're older, don't want to keep doing it. Plus, you got the ELDs coming up, and that's going to eliminate a lot more capacity. So it would not be a bad time to get in the business, okay? But you got to know what you're up to, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
Nothing's easy.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the HWY Pro app can help you actually know what you're doing and make it easy for you. So yeah. I would like to keep everybody to keep in mind that this is a fairly new service. So, if you find a few kinks here and there, you can expect that from a brand new service. Am I right?
Absolutely. And we have, also, Todd, we have a feedback button on the app.
So that's awesome. Yeah.
It's brand new. So from shippers as well as truckers, okay, we got to know where we're messing up, what's not working, what's working.
Yeah.
And we certainly are open to any ideas, because it's like I said earlier, it's a brand new app, a brand new technology, brand new everything.
Yeah.
And so it's going to evolve as we go. And again, I appreciate anything that's going to save them money and me money, because that's what it's all about.
And, I work with a company right now that's doing a trucking app also, and it's in beta version, and they don't want people to just tell them how awesome things are. It doesn't help them at all. What they need is for constructive criticism. I mean, they love it. These guys love it when I tell them, this is broken, this this really sucks, you need to fix that. They love it. They're like, yes, thank you. We need that feedback. And so, drivers out there, if you download the HWY Pro app and you see something that's screwed up, use that feedback button. That's what it's there for Pete's sake, people.
Yes, sir. And that will, trust me on this, people, it will not be not looked at.
Yeah, somebody's going to look at it, exactly, and take action on it. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, well, Bill, I've held you long enough today. Is there anything else we missed? Is there anything you want to say about the app or anything?
Todd, as I said earlier, I'm not a very good speaker, and certainly not a technology guy. I'm from Louisiana. I now live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and my daughter lives in California, and I travel to New York occasionally. Okay, so what I've learned is people are people all over the country, and when you sit down and listen to someone, everybody has their problems. I mean, if it'd be smooth and easy, wouldn't be no reason for afterlife.
It wouldn't be planet Earth. That's
right. That's right. And you have good days and you have bad days. But anyone who out there who wants to sign up, I wish they would. And also, please have no problem. As you said earlier, Todd, we need to know constructive criticism of what's going on, because we will work it and we will fix it.
Okay, so owner-operators, there's no reason not to. It's a free app. Why don't you give it a shot? It's HWYPro.com. That's HWYPRO.com. So thanks for coming by, Bill. Appreciate you stopping into the trucker dump, and have a great evening.
You too, Todd, and I appreciate it, buddy. See you later.
Okay, ciao. Well, that was fun. As you guys can tell, though, I'm not very good at interviewing yet. I do appreciate Bill putting up with me. We just had a hard time even getting on Skype beforehand. Neither one of us have used it. Well, I've used it a very little bit, and he's used it never. So that was kind of fun in itself. But had a pretty good interview there. Had a good time with him. I would like to stress that this is a new app. So just remember that when you go to the website, like if you're listening to this the day of download, it might not be available. The app might not be available in your app store yet. He said November 7th, I think, is when it's going to be in there for sure. But right now, also, there's not a way for you to sign up and play with the app unless you are an owner-operator. But they are changing that. They're trying to work it to where you can do a test account. So just download the app when you see it. It'll be free. And if they have that fixed by then, you'll be able to sign up and you'll know it. And they also wanted to stress that this thing is growing very, very fast. They just brought on some new partners. So if you get this app and you look and say you're in Dallas and you're looking for a load out of there and you're not seeing one, or to the area you would like to go to, just remember that it's a new app and they're adding new customers all the time, and they stress that it's going really, really fast. They're really picking up speed fast, as I said, maybe 14 times now. So anyway, just remember that as you go forward. It's a new app. All new apps have problems. Report the bugs when you see them, and I'm sure they will appreciate it. So hey, let's move on to the blog post portion where you get to hear me whine for a really long time. Well, oh well. You know, I mentioned earlier that I'm using this new software called Hindenburg. I know you guys say you can never hear sounds in the background, and that's, I don't know, maybe that's true. GarageBand has always done a decent job of suppressing that sound, but this was by far, when I did this portion of it and the feedback section, was by far the loudest I think I've ever recorded in. And I did that on purpose because I really wanted to test this app and the denoising feature of it. And to my left, I had a truck that was idling away on high idle. To my right, I had another truck that was high idling. These aren't APUs idling. These are actual trucks idling. And the guy on the right of me also had a reefer. And I tell you what, when I got done with it and I put the noise filter on it and everything, I literally had to mash my headphones onto my ears to hear the sound in the background. So that is why I'm buying that stinking app eventually. And I'm buying the Pro version eventually too. So there will be no more excuses of, oh, I couldn't record because it was too loud outside. Dang it. I keep taking away opportunities to duck out of these things. Why do I do that? Anyway, let's get on with the blog post. Oh, and hey, not that you really care or anything, but I'm sticking my guns here on this. I wanted to tell you that I recorded this portion of it while I was sitting in West Virginia. I believe it's Valley Grove. I think that's the name of the town. It is where the TA is on I-70. I'm sure all you truckers know exactly where I'm talking about. Anyway, let's get on with it. I call it the Overweight Axle Debacle. Just sit right back and you hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this northeast town aboard this great big truck. Wait a second, that's not how that song goes. But you know, it is the way this story starts. As with most of my blog posts, I like to tell a story about something that happened to me, and somehow I managed to stick a moral of the story onto it. Just like every old sitcom now that I think about it. So this story, or rant, depending on how you look at it, began with a long run from Elkhart, Indiana to Newville, Pennsylvania, which is just south of Carlisle on I-81. I got the load on a Friday, and it needed to be delivered by Friday midnight to get the 560 miles on my next paycheck. But thanks to the awesome household movers guide that most truckers get paid by, the trip was actually well over 600 miles. In the end, I needed to average 58 miles an hour to pull it off, which is a real feat in a 64 mile an hour truck, even in the best of conditions. My dispatcher said it couldn't be done, especially since the customer hadn't authorized any toll roads, and rarely does my company on their own either. I'm pretty sure my company's bigwigs think the Indiana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania turnpikes are all hunting grounds of a flock of giant truck-eating pterodactyls. Anyway, I thought I could pull it off. Turns out we were both right. I could have delivered the load by midnight, but I didn't have enough hours to get off the receiver's property, and they didn't allow overnight parking on site. So I have e-logs to thank for my crappy next paycheck. Great. Evil Overlord's gonna love that. Anywho, I parked at our yard about 15 miles from the delivery because I had an oil change due on the new Kenworth. I got about 6 hours of sleep and was planning on going back to bed after the service, but instead I went to the driver's lounge and watched a few episodes of Law & Order, and then got caught up in back-to-back showings of all three The Expendables movies. What a waste of 6 hours, I gotta say. I mean, the movies were entertaining enough, but the best parts were always when they were subtly poking fun at the 80s movies they're playing off of, such as Commando and Rambo. The in-jokes always cracked me up. Now, the best one was when Chuck Norris's character, who's called Lone Wolf, he shows out of the blue to save the day. Just mows down everybody. It's quite awesome. Got a link in the show notes if you want to see the scene. Anyway, Sly, Sylvester Stallone, he says, he looks at Chuck and he says, "Hey, we heard you got bitten by a king cobra." And Chuck replies, "Yeah, I was. But after 5 days of agonizing pain, the cobra died." You know what? So did I, from laughter. That was awesome. Chuck Norris jokes just rock. So anyway, I tell you all this to set the stage that I was already strapped for sleep. I'd been up since 9 a.m. and I was planning on delivering and picking up my next load at the same location by 6 p.m. and delivering in North Carolina around 3 a.m. Now that's a long day for sure, but nothing I couldn't handle. I adjusted my tandems, that's the trailer axles, to the 41-foot mark. That's the kingpin to the center of the rear trailer axle, which is the bridge law in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, and North Carolina. Now, for more information on that bridge law, check out the link in the show notes. I did a whole podcast about it. Anyway, I pulled out of the shipper at 6:30 p.m. with 41,000 pounds on board, or so the paperwork said. More on that in a bit. Now, I don't normally call out customers, but I'm going to this time because, quite frankly, this rarely happens with this company. The customer was Unilever. Now, many non-truckers have probably never heard of the name, but I guarantee you have many of their products in your home right now. Axe men's products, Dove body wash, stuff like that, Hellman's mayonnaise, and Lipton's tea. Those are just a few of the brands they deal with. Now, my company hauls a lot of freight for them, and I've rarely had a problem with overweight issues. So I'm naming names to let you know that even reputable companies like Unilever sometimes have their heads up their butts. It does happen. So back to the story. Because these loads are often heavy, most of their facilities have scales on site, but not this one. The security guard told me they were leasing the building and the owner of the property wouldn't allow them to install a scale. Okay, first, how does a major company like Unilever not lease a space that meets at least their minimum requirements? Got no clue there. And secondly, why wouldn't the leaser allow it? It seems like to me it'd be a bonus feature if they ever need to lease it again. Oh well. Anyway, I tell you all this because the lack of an on-site scale plays into the story. The first way. The closest scale was 15 miles away in Carlisle, but it was in the wrong direction, so I drove 32 miles south to Greencastle, Pennsylvania, and weighed the load there at the TA. That's when the dread set in. Okay, now I've included a link in the show notes to a screenshot of the Weigh My Truck app from Cat Scale, so you can get an idea what my weights were like. Now, truckers, if you don't have this app installed yet and you ever need to scale a load, well, you're just an idiot. That's all there is to it. Well, I guess possibly you don't have a smartphone yet, which, as a tech junkie, it still kind of has me wondering about you. Anyway, I'll be reviewing that Weigh My Truck app at a later date. Now, to keep you non-trucking peeps in the loop, here's the weight limits for standard tractor trailers without special permits. The steer axles, that's the ones that steer up front, those are limited at 12,000 pounds, although to be honest, I've never been hassled if I had more than that, ever. Now the drive axles, that's the ones right behind the cab, those are 34,000 on that dual axle set. The trailer axle also 34,000 pounds on that, and the total gross of the whole vehicle, including fuel, truck, trailer, load, everything, is 80,000 pounds. Now, as you can see from the screenshot, if you're looking at it, my trailer axle is over by 1,540 pounds, meaning they've got way too much heavy crap on the back end of my trailer. Now this happens every now and then with heavier loads, so I just took it in stride. I drove 32 miles back to the shipper and showed the security guard my weigh ticket. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in a dock and someone started rearranging the load. Now when it was finished, I looked at the load before I closed the door. Now remember, I couldn't do this the first time because the trailer was preloaded and already sealed. But I had looked at it before I backed in the dock this time. But when they were done loading, just like before, the last two pallets were still heavy crap. The only thing that changed that I could see was that before it had been Dove products and now it was Axe body wash. Either way, it didn't look like it had changed much to me. I checked out at the security gate and they put a new seal on. For more information on seals, I've put a link in the show notes to a podcast I did about what a seal is. Anyway, I reported the new seal number to my company and I headed out. So, now do I go to the closer scale in Carlisle this time? Nope, and that's for two reasons. First, I trusted that they reloaded it right. These things usually get resolved on the first rework, so I gave them the benefit of the doubt. Besides, my perception of a load has been fooled before. And the second reason, reweighs are cheaper than initial weighs. I can remember a time when a cat scale was like $8, but like everything, well, except driver pay, I guess, that seems to have increased in price. But if you need to reweigh the load, every reweigh for the next 24 hours are only $2 each, provided, of course, you go back to the exact same scale you weighed at initially. So, another 32 miles later, I'm back at the TA in Greencastle again. That's when I see the next screenshot. Link in the show notes. Reweigh number 1. Yes, I'm counting these so you can see where this is going. Now, as you can see, my instinct had been correct. In the hour it took to reload me, they managed to move a whopping 80 pounds forward. I was less than thrilled. Another 32 miles later, I'm back talking to the disbelieving security guard. Another 20 minutes, and I'm sitting back in Dock 291, which is where they do all their reworks. Ask me in a year, and I bet I still remember that dock number after this debacle. One thing I would like to mention here is that this 20 minutes to get a dock thing is a recurring theme in this story. Now, I have no idea why it took that long each time. After the guard closed the window, I saw her doing paperwork and computer stuff for about 10 minutes, and then she'd be on the phone with someone for another 5. Then 5 minutes to drive to the far side of the building, open the doors, and dock the trailer. Oh, and I almost forgot. I had to drop the trailer each time and pull a few feet in front of the trailer. That's just more stupid rules truckers have to follow. And there's a link in the show notes to an article I wrote about stupid rules. Anyway, another hour later, and the load does look better, but not great. I briefly consider going north this time to save about 17 miles. But if everything axled out this time, I would have gone out of route 34 miles to reweigh the load. And I would have had to pay the full $11 again, being a new scale location and all. Well, really, it's my company that pays the weigh my truck at, but you get the gist. I admit I was also thinking, who screws up a load 3 times in a row? So I chalk up another 32 miles. Now, the one bright thing in all this is I do get paid for all these extra miles. Wow, talk about making lemonade. Reweigh number 2. Okay, now keep in mind that although this is only the second reweigh, this is the third chance they've had at getting the load right. Don't forget they had the initial loading. Now, as you can see from the screenshot, link in the show notes, they did much better this time, but they're still 540 pounds over on the trailer axle. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that some driver out there is hearing this and screaming, "Run with it, driver!" And maybe I would have under other circumstances. But I was going through Virginia, and any experienced trucker knows that their weigh stations are rarely closed. You just don't mess with the big VA when it comes to weight. A driver once told me he got a $1,000 ticket for being 300 pounds over gross weight. Ouch. I'm sorry, but if I got a $1,000 ticket due to my impatience, the evil overlord would slit my throat while I slept. After I mowed the lawn, obviously. Now, it was at this time that I noticed something weird. You experienced truckers may have already spotted it on these screenshots. Why exactly does a load that supposedly only weighs 41,000 pounds gross out at 78,680 pounds? Earlier that week, I had hauled a 46,350 pound load of sugar, and it only grossed 20 pounds more than this load. Yet it supposedly had over 5,000 pounds more freight. That's peculiar. And for your information, it has nothing to do with fuel. I had about a half a tank for both loads. Okay, back to the shipper I go. This time the guard's shaking her head as I approach. I explained that they were a lot closer than the time before, but that there was still too much heavy crap on the rear end. Just for the record, the last 2 pallets were sitting about the 48-foot mark, which honestly you can normally get axled out just fine if it's loaded properly. I also pointed out to the guard that I thought the listed weight of 41,000 pounds was incorrect. I also gently but firmly demanded to talk to his supervisor before they reworked the load again. The guard said someone would come back and talk to me once I got backed into my old friend, Dock 291. I backed in, but no one came. Then I heard a giant thump on the trailer and knew they were starting without me. Figures. I went back and pounded on the side of the trailer, and I had a conversation with the supervisor about my theory of the load being heavier than 41,000 pounds. I could tell she didn't take me serious. I said, "Hey, I'm only 540 pounds over. If you can just cut one pallet, I'll be out of your hair forever." To which she said that their contract with Walmart didn't allow cutting pallets unless the load was over gross weight. This, honestly, didn't surprise me. First, Walmart always gets what they ask for because, well, they're Walmart. And second, I knew my company signed contracts like this too. You know those sugar loads I mentioned earlier that are always 46,350 pounds? Well, dispatch doesn't send us to pick it up if we can't pull that much due to having too much fuel or having a heavier branded truck or something. If we load it and we can't run it legal, we just have to sit around and wait for a relay driver. Or run it illegal, obviously. Anyway, Mrs. Supervisor told me she was reworking the load herself and that it would for sure be legal when she was right. She was a supervisor. I mean, surely she'll get this sorted out, right? Well, when I got the green dock light, which means I can hook back up to the trailer and pull out, I went back to close the trailer doors and saw the load was now sitting even further back at the 50-foot mark. And there was still heavy body wash on the last two pallets. I pounded on the dock door, but of course she was long gone by then. I drove back out to the guard shack and told them I'd be back in a minute. They thought that was kind of funny. I didn't. Reweigh number 3. At this point, I had no faith in this load, the loaders, or the supervisors. Heck, my faith in Chuck Norris was even waning. This time, I never even considered going to Carlisle for reweighing. Good thing, because as you can see from this screenshot, link in the show notes, we were back where we started at 1,540 pounds over again. I knew it. Ugh. Now at this point, I was getting pretty grumpy. Not only was I back to square one, but I was also running low on driving hours now. I raced back to the shipper. Well, if you can consider 64 mile an hour top speed to be racing. Anyway, I get back there and I discover there's a new set of guards. Lovely. I explained how many times I'd already been there that day and that I didn't have enough time to rework the load again and still get off property and find parking for the night. Or should I say day? Because at this point, I'd been awake for almost 21 hours. I told this new guard that I wanted to drop the trailer so they could work on it while I took a break. He called inside and the lady supervisor would not let me drop the trailer and leave because the load, and I quote, wasn't her responsibility since I had signed for the load. Say what? Now, that might be the case if it was a legal load, but hey, it wasn't. I'm not taking a load that's illegal. Wow. Anyway, I called night dispatch and asked to drop the trailer on our yard and let another driver deal with it the next day since I'd been messing with it for 12 hours already. The dispatcher implied that was a crappy thing to do to another driver, and selfishly I said, yep, sure is, and it's something every other driver would have tried to do to me if they were in my shoes, because you know they would have. Anyway, he didn't argue with me, but I also didn't win the argument. He didn't have anyone else to cover the load, and I believed him since I'd been at the yard the day before and the place looked like a freaking ghost town. I think I actually saw a tumbleweed rolling across there. I accepted my fate and parked at a rest area a couple miles away. I heated up a frozen lasagna to try to lighten my mood. It didn't work. I woke up the next morning with a fresh confidence in a new day. Okay, that's a lie. I woke up grumpy and doubtful that this problem would ever get resolved. When I got back to the guard shack, the young lady from the day before was there again. I just smiled as I approached the window. She chuckled and got the 20-minute process started again with barely a word. When the dock door finally opened up, a different loader was standing there. He said he'd been informed of my situation and he'd been called in on his day off to rectify the problem. Now, I was just happy to see that Unilever was finally acknowledging the insanity of the situation. I also explained to him how I thought there was more than 41,000 pounds on board, and of course, he doubted it. At least he was nice about it, unlike the lady supervisor. Naturally, I asked about cutting a couple of those back pallets too, but he confirmed that Walmart wouldn't have any of those kind of shenanigans. At least I didn't have to explain that I couldn't have that heavy product on the tail of the trailer. He'd already pointed that out. He said he'd been loading trucks for 5 years there and he'd get it right the first time. Of course, my response was, hey, no offense, man, but that's what the lady said last night. He laughed and said he wasn't surprised because the supervisor was a horrible loader. Apparently everyone knew it, except for her, and me, obviously. His cockiness did restore my hopeful attitude just a tad. When he finished, he had managed to get all the freight forward to the 45-foot mark. That's impressive. This time, I actually had as much confidence as he did about it being loaded right. Now, the last 2 side-by-side pallets were still that heavy Axe body wash, but with everything that far forward, I thought this saga might finally be over. He gave me the office number and said he'd be awaiting my call to confirm his awesomeness, which I thought was pretty funny. On the way out, I told the guards it was nice talking to them the last 2 days, but I hope I never saw either of their faces again. My wishes so rarely come true. Reway number 4. Now this time I drove to the Flying J in Carlisle because my 24-hour reway limit was close to expiring. The Weigh My Truck app charged me $11 again, and I didn't care in the least, nor did I care that I was out of route. When the weights popped up on my iPhone screen, I'm pretty sure my chin actually sank into my chest. I was so disappointed. I shot a message off to my company, and then I called the loader. I could literally hear the cockiness fade from his voice when I told him it was 540 pounds over again. There's a link in the show notes, by the way, to the screenshot. Anyway, when he found out my fuel was only at a half a tank, he asked me to put on as much fuel as I can. Now, his reasoning was that if the load was close to 80,000 pounds, he'd have an excuse to cut a pallet off the load. Sounded reasonable to me. I called dispatch to authorize some fuel, and as the dispatcher was getting ready to set it up, I heard another dispatcher in the background say with a firm tone, "He's not adding any more fuel if you guys can't get him legal in the first place. You'll either call Walmart and get him to approve cutting a pallet, or we're leaving the load on your property. That's your choices." Well, all I have to say about that is, it's about friggin' time. I had hit them up about something like this earlier, way earlier. Anyway, I headed back to the shipper without adding fuel. When I got back, the guard said she'd have just taken the load and avoided the scales. Well, with a too sweet smile on my face, I said, "I shouldn't have to risk a ticket because your loaders are incompetent." She had to agree with the logic, especially when I told her how strict Virginia was on weight issues. Now back at the dock, yes, 20 minutes later, I saw a different loader when the dock door rolled up. Now I thought I'd been passed off again, and I was starting to get pissed off, but my mind was eased when the once cocky dude showed up again as we spoke. I asked what the plan was, and he said he'd both called and emailed Walmart with no response. No surprise since it was a Sunday. Now despite that, he was going to cut a pallet anyway and take the consequences on Monday. Thank God for a guy with a set of gonads the size, and possibly weight, of bowling balls. He yanked a 1,065-pound pallet of mayonnaise off, but when I looked at the load, it hadn't moved forward any. Now I was concerned that the pallet he pulled had been too far forward so that it wouldn't affect the back axles by 540 pounds. Was I right? God, I hope not. I barely spoke to the guards on the way out. Reweigh number 5. I headed back to Carlisle for my $2 reweigh, and when I saw the weights, I could literally feel my body relax. It was finally over. The final tally was steer axle 11,440, drive axle 32,360, and trailer axle 33,620 pounds. That's 380 pounds under on the trailer axle. Awesome. So, all said and done, 28 hours of my life was gone. 10 of it on a mandatory DOT break, and the other 18 driving from the shipper to the scale and back a jillion times, and sitting in dock 291. Now, to make me feel better about this whole thing, I ran into the Flying J and grabbed some classic comfort food in the form of a couple of corn dogs. Wouldn't you know it, they were 2 of the worst things I've ever eaten. But of course, I waxed them off anyway. Overweight axle debacle or not, I'll always be a cheapskate. And by the way, thanks to Flying J for capping off my perfectly crappy 2 days. So like I said in the beginning, I like to try to learn something from these ordeals and pass it along to you. In this case, I'm going to reiterate a situation I talked about in the last episode, which was episode 123. It was in part 2, I believe. Well, there was no part 2 for the podcast. The moral of the story. Now, if you've got an extra day and a half, go back and listen to this podcast. You'll notice that I often said I was unhappy or grumpy or outright angry. but never once did I lose my cool on anyone. I did explain my situation and boldly state what I wanted to happen, but I did so without raising my voice or cursing at anyone. Now, would it have helped if I had? You know, I'm sure the drivers who flip out on people thinks it helps, but far too often I've seen what happens when people get screamed at. They simply have no incentive to help you anymore. You've already yelled at them, so how much worse could it get? But the driver being nice when they're being wronged, that's the trucker whose problem they want to help solve. I'm going to go back to the principle where I always tend to wind up. The golden rule. Treat others as you'd like to be treated. If someone else screwed up a load that you're trying to fix, would you want to be yelled at about it? Nope. Even if you are the one that screwed up, do you want to see spittle coming from an irate trucker's lips? Nada. And even if you're the guard up front who has absolutely nothing to do with the loading or the insane 20-minute procedure put in place to check in an overweight truck, would you want a pissed off trucker charging up to your window with paperwork flying while being called a son of a douchebag and every other vile name in the book? I dare say you wouldn't. And you know, all too often, these security guards do take the brunt of it because they're the first person you see when you show up. You know, the fact is, people screw up. Companies screw up. Heck, once every 20 years or so, even I screw up. But when it happens, just pull your panties out of your arse and take a chill pill. Trucker dumps happen, you know?
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Alrighty, folks, it's feedback time again. I don't know if you're going to believe me or not, but I am actually catching up on email today. I'm leaving one behind on purpose because I don't have any for the next podcast. So, you know, I guess I shouldn't be surprised at that. I'm sure a lot of people just don't write in because they realize it's going to be months before their thing gets read on the podcast. But I've been kind of kicking out one once a month now, so that's good, right? It's about as good as I can do. Anyway, if you want your stuff read, if you got something to say about any of the old podcasts or any of the new one, this current one, just write in, or better yet, send an audio comment. I love those. You can record those directly into your phone on your voice recorder app, and usually there's a share button right in there, and you can just zip it off to truckerdump@gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. And don't leave me stranded next episode. I'll cry. Anyway, we're going to start out from our old friend Renae. Well, she's not old. Well, she might be old. I don't know. Anyway, hey, Renae, where you been? She joined the Trucker Dump Slack group, and she's just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. I don't know. Maybe we're a bunch of dudes in there, most of us. Maybe we offended you, Renae. If we did, come back. We're sorry. Anyway, let me know what's going on. Anyway, I think this is one of these where she just read she's binge listening, and she's got a whole bunch of comments going on here. So I will just jump in here and comment as I go along. She starts out. I'm going to just jump into this because it's been on my mind quite a bit. Okay, you do that, Renae. She says, I've been thinking about the podcast I recently heard on Trucker Nation. Misty Knoll hosts and enjoys talking about health issues for drivers. I hadn't gotten very far into it because she also talks about tax crap all the time. She says, I can only hear so much of that before I hit overload. Yeah, I can imagine. She goes on. She stated that truckers on average live 15 years less than non-drivers. Now, I have no idea if this is an accurate statistic, but it kind of bothers me. If this is accurate, then why? Diet, exercise, rest, work conditions, stress, access to medical care? Honestly, Renae, I'd say D, all of the above. She goes on. I've been out here since July of 2015. Nope, that's not a very long time, but I've noticed several things. The general public has no clue and don't care, and the companies that could help us in being healthier turn us away. How many Walmarts have you tried to park in that says no trucks? Well, a piss load of them. But notice how many times there's trucks parked right underneath those signs anyway. She says, how many grocery stores have access? How many truck stops are actually close enough to shop at a store? Not very many. And even if they were, you wouldn't want to walk that far. And most truckers would be far too lazy to take the cart back when they're done. And that's just going to piss off the grocery store, right? When they find all their carts over at the truck stop next door. Anyway, she says, I parked at a truck stop recently and had access to a Walmart. After slogging through a flooded field, the thought of hauling 40 pounds of groceries back to the truck was ridiculous. Ah, see, just commenting on what you just said. Guess I should let you talk before I interrupt. Wow. That could be a direct quote from the evil overlord. She carries on. How many companies have restrictive off-duty driving policies? How many places allow you to drop a trailer for a limited amount of time so you can run a few errands bobtail? How are truckers supposed to be healthier if we don't have the routine access that other people do? Well, I think that's the point. We're not. I don't know. It just, another thing, you talk about grocery stores and things like that not having access to them. But, the places that we do have access to, they don't help matters any. Now, I will admit that places like Pilot, Flying J, Loves, I don't spend much time in TA and Petro, but I bet they're doing the same thing. They're offering more healthy options. But the problem is those options are never the main thing. I mean, when you go up to the counter, they don't say, hey, do you know you can get 2 bananas with that milk? No, they say, hey, did you know you can get 2 Snickers with that 44-ounce Dr. Pepper? They always promote the unhealthy stuff. And maybe there's more of a profit on that. I'm sure there is. But, they're not helping matters any because truckers are weak. I don't buy this stuff because I'm cheap. I can avoid an upsell. But, on another note, I feel sorry for all those cashiers who have to ask you every single time. And I have heard that they do get in trouble if they do not ask you these questions. Just like the people at Love's, they get in trouble if they don't say, hi, welcome to Love's every time you walk in the door or every time you walk out. Hey, come back. It's quite annoying and I feel sorry for them. I just try to be friendly. Anyway, pretty sad. Okay, where'd we leave off? Imagine that. I went off on a tangent and lost track of where I was. Okay, she said, it wasn't just the statistic. I hate that word. I never can say it worth a crap. I'm not saying it again. The stats of 15 years less to live that prompted my thinking, but also an article sent to me from a longtime family friend in Colorado Springs. The TOPS organization is a group that has been working in Colorado Springs, Colorado area to promote trails, parks, and preserves. Admirable, and from the article, they've done great work over the years. That's TOPS, T-O-P-S, all caps. She says, my thoughts while looking at the article were, what kind of access is provided for people like us? What do we get out of it? We bring in the products and provide the materials that keep the economies of the world running. But it's like we're a forgotten minority. Yep, we are. But you know what? I will have to say, there are some trucking companies. I know the Petro TA franchise, they are really working at trying to put some, treadmills, elliptical stuff in there. And you will also sometimes find maps back in the driver's lounge area where they will show you like a walking trail. Now, sometimes I do notice that their open quote walking trail is just like the sidewalk out front, and walk down a city street to an industrial park and then come back. But they've got the mileage marked off and can tell you exactly how far you're going. So they're trying, I think, but let's just be honest. Truckers just aren't into exercise. I'm pretty convinced those are probably some of my least popular podcasts, the ones I talk about health and exercise and things like that and eating right. So I just don't think there's a big interest in it. And where there's not a big interest, people are not going to waste their money and time and effort. Sad as that may be. We're just going to have to do it for ourselves if we want to get it done. Speaking of that, I've been really horrible at it because I threw out my back not too long ago and couldn't work out. And it really sucked. It sucks getting old. All I did was bend over. I was sitting on my bed and I bent over to pick up my computer bag, which, okay, I'll be honest, it weighs about 30 or 40 pounds. It's got so much crap in it from over the years. But I was not lifting with my legs, picked it up, tweaked my back. Of course, right before I had to go home and help the in-laws move. Nice. Brilliant. Anyway, I did feel better by the time I got home, so thank God for that. Okay, where were we? Okay. She says, sometimes we are the problem. Why should they care about a bunch of guys who don't bathe, throw trash on the ground, and clog up their communities? Other than warning other drivers about hazards, most of the CB chatter is trash too. We can't even behave well to each other. Why? I don't know. That's always been a question of mine, why we can't respect each other, or that we don't respect each other, and then we expect others to respect us. Bugs the living crap out of me. Anyway, she finishes up. I was one of the people who didn't give trucks a second thought until I became a trucker. I love this life. It's the most money I've ever made, which I'm fully aware is pathetic, she says. Oh, yeah. It'll get better as years go on. But she says, the lifestyle just fits me. I'm just disappointed in the country, the industry, and people who think truckers don't matter. Anyway, I just thought you might have some thoughts about some of these things and could help me understand. Well, I don't know if I helped you understand or not, Renae, but if I didn't answer any of your questions or I just rambled too much, hey, send me another email. I need one, right? And you promised to do some audio, so do it. Get on with it. Come on, woman. All right, next up we have... Emily wrote in. She said she stumbled across my blog post called Winter Truck Driving Tips from an Alaskan trucker, which is from Kevin Lowry. I interviewed him. He lives in Alaska. He is now a tow truck driver. I think I mentioned that in the opening of the show. But anyway, she says that's great content, and she says her company has put out a blog called Winter Survival Kit, 10 Things to Keep in Your Truck. So you might want to check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes to that and the winter truck driving tips from the Alaskan trucker. I'll put links to both those in the show notes. And winter is coming on, so get ready for it. Emily works for MHC, who most of you probably know is commercial truck dealerships. So it was nice of her to send that to me, and check that out. Winter Survival Kit, 10 Things to Keep in Your Truck, including yourself. Hey, next up, it's kind of cool. Every once in a while I get one of these from some old friend. Now, largely I stayed off of Facebook, like I mentioned in the beginning, because too many old friends came out of the woodwork that I didn't really want to talk to or see, because my life is different now. And I just don't want to be remembered as that person from the past. I mean, I really don't get it, honestly. What kind of girlfriend or girl would contact a guy's wife to get a hold of him after many, many years? Makes no sense to me. I don't get it. I would never do that. I'd never contact a guy on Facebook and say, hey man, where's your wife, man? I used to date her. She was awesome. That's so uncool. Who does that? Oh, anyway. Anyway, I did hear from a friend, and this is one of the very few friends that I actually still would love to hang out with. He's cool. Garry Fawcett. I don't know if we'd consider each other best friends in high school. Maybe. He had other friends. We each had other friends. We were in a lot of choir classes together and stuff. We did the show choir and all that groovy stuff like that. We did the show choir before it was cool, before movies like Pitch Perfect made it cool. By the way, if you have not seen Pitch Perfect and you think it's stupid, because it's just a stupid a cappella high school or college movie or whatever, don't pay attention to that. Watch that movie. I made all of my nephews watch it, and they all think it's hilarious and love it. None of them wanted to watch it beforehand. So, anyway, check that movie out. Pitch Perfect. I have not seen 2 or the new one. I'm planning on it, though. Anyway, Garry. Whew, wow, that was long-winded. Anyway, Garry writes, Todd, been reading some of your stuff. I really miss your awesome sense of humor. I hope you and the evil overlord are doing well. Yes, we are. We are doing very well. Well as can be expected. She is back in school taking a chemistry class, which she's not super happy about because it involves math. And I'm out here on the road until she's through school. So maybe we're not doing so well. Anyway, thanks for writing in, Gary. Good hearing from you. Hope everything's cool with your family. Last time I saw Gary was at our my hometown ballpark. I was there watching one of my nephews play baseball, and one of his I think one of his daughters was down there playing softball. Just kind of crazy, I don't have kids of my own, so it sometimes boggles me when I look at somebody my age and they've got grown, high school kids in college, and it's like, what the heck, and I just forget that I could easily have kids that old myself. Thank God I don't. And hey, last we hear from David. Okay, David was the guy. Okay, he says, "Hey Todd, thanks for reading my comment on the last show. I just listened to the podcast on the trucking that was directed at the trucking school students, and I was the one who had the bluegrass cell number. The one who farms now after 15 years of driving, still waiting on the drawing of the jacket. Hey, keep up the podcast and keep on trucking. My handle is Barnyard. I would say when I'm not in the truck, I'm in the barn. I'm in the barnyard." Okay, Barnyard. That's a good one. So anyway, David, I don't know if you won or not. I announced it in the beginning of the show, and I am actually recording this before the beginning of the show, which I know is backwards, but I wasn't prepared to do the beginning. I had all the blog posts and the emails ready to go. So anyway, I'm just glad to put a name behind that email, because that really had me stumped. Bluegrass cell. Anyway. All right. Well, that about does it. Like I said. Oh no, I've got one more. Yeah, and then I'm going to save the other one from Renae for the next show. Anyway, Andrew writes in. He says, "Hey bud, love your show. Glad you're back. 3 things today. You're not showing up in Podbean." Okay, here's the thing. Let me go ahead and answer this. Podbean is like it's a hosting service for podcasts. So if I would want to be on it, it's kind of like Stitcher or TuneIn. Only Stitcher and TuneIn are free, whereas Podbean you can host your podcast there and people can find it there. And I have not found a reason to be on it yet, because quite honestly, they charge for their service, and I'm already paying my hosting where I store my files, my audio files. So I just haven't seen a reason to go there. You're the first person that has asked about Podbean. So until I get a lot of people saying, hey, why aren't you on Podbean? Then I'm probably not going to be on Podbean. Anyway, if they do, then I will get on Podbean. Okay. He says, "I like your sense of humor a lot." Now, I love this. Okay. He says, "I like your sense of humor a lot, but I thought I might offer my opinion, knowing it's only my opinion, but it seemed like in the first portion of the lecture for the driving students in the last podcast that the jokes were forced." And he says, do with that as you like." Okay, first off, I admit I forced the jokes a bit in the beginning of the lecture portion of that podcast. I really thought I needed to grab the students' attention right off the bat. But I'm rethinking that whole podcast, though. I was planning on sending it to the schools in a podcast form, but first, I just don't know if it's going to get played. Because first, it's a podcast, so I don't know if it's going to hold their attention at all. And second, it's 30 minutes long, and that's fine for a podcast. But I don't know if maybe if it was a video, I could go 30 minutes, but I don't have that much video content to put in there. I mean, I don't know what I would put over the voiceover part of it. So I honestly think I'm just going to have to redo that whole thing. I'll leave the podcast the way it is, but I'm probably going to have to go in and just make a specific video, try to keep it down to 15 minutes, try to cut out a lot of the extraneous stories and stuff, which I know is what Trucker Dump is about. And they really won't get a true idea of what the Trucker Dump is, but at least it will get that information out to them. And that is what I'm really trying to do here. Sure, I'd like to get some extra listeners out of it, but I'm really trying to get this information out there so we don't have a problem with all these new drivers coming out and doing stupid crap. So anyway, but I do appreciate the honest feedback. So often I say, please give me some feedback on the show, and I don't get any. Or if I do, somebody bothers to write in and they just say, hey, the show's great. Well, that doesn't help at all. I mean, unless you truly think everything about it is great. I just have a hard time believing that. But anyway, I appreciate it. But here's the thing. I think about this forced jokes thing. Now, you can probably tell, of course you can tell, that the blog post portion is scripted. I wing the rest of it, but the blog post portion is always scripted. And I'm often thinking that any solo podcast that seems scripted seems forced to me. But I honestly don't know how else you would do it. I mean, think about a comedian. They're not just getting up there and winging it most of the time. They've got a script. They've got everything timed perfectly. They know exactly what they're going to say. They're forcing the jokes. I don't know if that's what you meant exactly, but that's kind of the way I feel like when you're writing and you're a solo podcaster, they're going to feel forced in a way because I don't have anybody to react with. I don't have anybody sitting across from me that I can crack jokes at something they just said. Personally, I think my sense of humor is better in that light. I think my wit is better in a conversational situation, but I just don't have that opportunity to do that. Hopefully I will have a chance to do some more interviews and, show that side of my personality. And just stick with me. Anyway, it sounds like you're not going anywhere, but I do appreciate the feedback. Either way, Andrew, love it. Lastly, he says, the golden rule. As someone who has worked around the driving industry and occasionally in it, if I'm mowing at a distribution center and a driver stops to ask directions, I have no problem doing all that I can to help him. However, once they're on the way out of there, please don't take your break by flagging me down just to chat. I get paid by the job, not by the hour. But I was taught not to be rude unless it was absolutely necessary. I'm sure others have been in this situation also. Just some thoughts for consideration. Keep it between the mustard and the mayo, old friend, Andrew. Andrew, you can't feel alone about being cornered by this trucker because truckers get cornered by other truckers. The problem is I feel sorry for a lot of these guys because I just know they don't have anybody to talk to in their lives. Because if you say one word to them, it's like it just opens a floodgate. And I know everyone teases me about talking a lot, but I think the people who have met me in person would, if they were completely honest, they would say that I don't monopolize a conversation. I think I give and take as much as the other person, but I don't know. One of my best friends, Alan, out in Colorado says I'm not like that. So I trust his word on that. But like I said, a lot of these guys, man, they just take off. You give them one opening and they take off, and like these guys, they're tracking you down on break because you talked to them for a second. And now they want to talk to you because they got nobody else to talk to. I feel sorry for them. But you know what? Just like I have to do, you just have to walk. You just have to say, hey, man, I'd love to stay and talk, but I got stuff I need to do. In your case, you need to mow that grass. You got a job to do too. You're getting paid by the hour. I'm getting paid by the mile. There's lots of times where I just have to look at a trucker and I just say, hey man, sorry, but I got to go. I got stuff I need to do. I got a load that needs to deliver. And, they may think you're rude, but hey, what are you going to do? You got to get out of that situation. Anyway, okay, that'll sum it up. If anybody else has any feedback for me, constructive feedback, not just telling me how wonderful I am. I mean, the evil overlord does that all the time. It's so blasé. I'm so used to it. Anyway. All right. I guess that does it. Let's hear some music. Get out of this puppy. So, have you ever been detained for 28 hours for an overweight load? I'll bet someone out there has. Write in and tell me about it. You can leave a comment on abouttruckdriving.com by searching for TD124, or you can smash an email through the internets to truckerdump@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter, where I'm at Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. And don't forget about the Trucker Dump and iTracker Slack groups. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but go to the Trucker Dump Podcast Facebook group and give it a like. Whatever the heck that's supposed to do. Make sure you join the Trucker Dump Podcast Facebook group while you're there so you can help me learn how to do the Facebook. As always, thanks for listening. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way.